I didn't park it.
I would like to call to order the November 7th, 2022 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. First up is the approval of the agenda, and you all have a copy of that before you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of the Cabarrus Health Alliance agenda item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and we move to discussion items. First up is our innovation report, and we're happy to have Kasha Thompson with us for that. And Karen Calhoun, it appears.
Thank you for having us here to discuss innovation that's happening in the county. These are strategies we're using to move our business processes forward, and we're excited to share them with you and the community. Today we're going to discuss Failing Forward, which is an initiative that started out of our workplace climate studies from 2 years ago. We just finished our second workplace climate survey. It ended last week, and we had great participation, so we look forward to sharing those results with you and making some internal improvements by way of that. But from that process, in the last survey that happened, Human Services was invited to participate in a Fail Forward initiative, which is an opportunity to break down processes and understand where we can improve climate and culture in order to make a better place for employees and a safer climate with your business processes so that you can move forward in many directions. So I will turn it over to Karen and her staff, and they will walk you through their experience with the Fail Forward.
Thank you, Kasha, and good afternoon, Commissioners. We're happy to share with you about the Failing Forward project that we went through for a series of almost a year. And I'll give you a little bit of background, and I'm going to have my staff come up. Those are the ones that did the real work. I'm not going to take credit for that at all. They've done the real work behind all of this and share with you the success of our project. So the Department of Human Services not only performs emotionally demanding services, client-facing tasks for our individuals that we serve, we also navigate through state agencies, community partners, state and federal policies. And so we work hard to meet these needs and fear making mistakes oftentimes with what we do. And so when you think in terms of failing forward and being risk averse to failing forward, that could have serious repercussions for our customers potentially. And so we wanted to look at this very carefully of how we can be innovative and creative, but at the same time make sure that we don't miss anything as far as state mandates and those things are concerned. The team's main goal at the start of the program was to become less risk averse and to actually take some chances and be released from the status quo mindset, and that was one of the quotes from our staff. They also wanted to build a culture where staff have trusting relationships and they collaborate on multifaceted cases that require a lot of coordination and coming together, and communication is the key to that as well. They want to achieve these goals. The team realized they had, in order to do that, they had to tackle major obstacles and the fear of failure. So I'm going to have my staff come up and present to you. So we did this with 5 other counties that were in 5 other states, but Cabarrus County was the only North Carolina county. The other states were Oregon, Wyoming, Minnesota, and Virginia, and then, of course, us in North Carolina. So the concept was for the Center of Public Impact. We were in partnership with the National Association of County Administrators and selected these county governments to participate. Just to give you a little background here, 3 departments were selected for Cabarrus County, and you've already heard from the Tax Department and the Planning and Development Department. And now Department of Human Services is going to present out what we took on as a project. And we had 6 to 12. We're the 12. We had 12 members that served on our team, project team. And I have a group of them with us here that are going to go through these slides with you and tell you about our project. This is the Human Services team, and I have with me here this evening Diana Martin, who is the program manager, and she served as our project manager for Failing Forward. Natalia Young is a program manager in our customer services division, business services. She was our learning lead. And I also have Tara Allman, who is our prevention social work supervisor, and Laura Leip, who's the program administrator for economic family support services. And there's the list of our other staff that participated of the 12 as far as our team. I'm going to now turn it over to Diana to talk a little bit more about our goals.
Initially, DHS viewed Failing Forward as an opportunity to find ways to ensure we can continue to move forward with the Hub initiative that seeks to restructure our service delivery model and to provide more comprehensive, streamlined services to our residents. And that includes internally creating the Economic Family Support Services Division, EFS, that supports public assistance programs across our service sectors. And externally, DHS, along with community partners, have co-located at the Cabarrus Dream Center to provide one-stop shop made up of multidisciplinary teams providing centralized services and referrals to our different service sectors. So with the Failing Forward project, it's broken down into 3 phases. The first phase is understand. And during that phase, our group started a 2-month process to understand why it is difficult to learn from failure in our department. We interviewed stakeholders, which included our clients, our staff, caseworkers and social workers, our management staff, as well as community partners. We then analyzed the information from what we learned, which resulted in identifying some cultural and systemic barriers to innovation. In phase 2, our experiment phase, we spent 8 months experimenting with 2 low-stake ideas to learn how best to break down those barriers, and we tested our ideas with different groups, modifying based on results from each test and scaling those accordingly. In phase 3, our embed phase, we developed and implemented plans to ensure our ideas would be sustainable and that we could more broadly scale those ideas. And we developed plans to ensure the skills and behaviors that we learned during this project would continue after the program was completed. During the process, CPI encouraged the use of Miro, which is an online collaborative workspace that the team used to share, discuss, and develop our ideas. And here's a screenshot to give you an example of how DHS used Miro to work through our ideas and plan for the next workshop or for the testing. After interviewing stakeholders and analyzing the data in our phase 1, we created insight statements and worked to develop our ideas to address those barriers to failure in our department. And as Karen mentioned earlier, we identified that DHS lacks a system in place for staff at all levels to recognize and share about their failures. We needed an avenue for determining what must change. And also we realized that how risk averse or afraid we were to bring up hard issues, thus creating barriers to finding solutions when things are not working. So as a result, we created 2 testing phases for what we've learned, and then we created role swap, which is swaps between junior and senior employees and cross-divisional meetings. From what we learned, we created a purpose statement as we move forward, and at each stage of our development and in those different activities, we went back to that mission statement, that purpose statement, to make sure that we were on task. That purpose statement is, with the Failing Forward program, we'll foster a culture of innovation that encourages learning from failure. Doing so will empower us to build a work environment based on open communication, respect, and understanding that meets the needs of our employees, stakeholders, and the community that we serve.
Sorry. In phase 2, we completed several role swaps between junior and senior employees to learn about each other's roles and responsibilities. Part of our goal was for staff to comprehend each other's workload and create an environment of empathy and understanding between management and line staff. For those interested in the role swaps, we first completed a pre-swap meeting to discuss expectations and prepare them for their swap. Each member discussed what skills they wanted to learn and, during their role swap and their career goals for the future. Once they completed the role swaps, we then completed a post-swap meeting to obtain feedback of their lessons that they learned during their experience and also get their feedback. The outcomes for the role swaps, what it did is it helped our staff have a sense of empathy and appreciation for each other's roles. We learned that the importance of everyone's responsibilities and how they all fit together to better serve the families in our community. Employees build relationships with one another, helping them feel more comfortable knowing who to reach out to for assistance. This helps us enhance the services to our customers through collaboration between our departments. And during our interviews with junior employees, we found that at times there was a disconnect between line staff and upper management. After learning about each other's roles and responsibilities, employees felt more connected and engaged, which helps us reduce turnover. And then our role swaps also educate employees on where they gain new skills, and that can be utilized for our succession planning.
The second idea that was tested is cross-team meetings. The two teams that were able to do this experiment were Tara Ullman's team, Prevention and Social Work Services staff, as well as the Economic Family Support Programs. Those were the two teams that were selected. Our first meeting was more of a meet and greet. It gave staff an opportunity to put faces with names that we work with in the same building every day. But it gave them also an opportunity to share about their programs. The three teams there service a multitude of clients in different areas and programs, so it was good for those staff to be able to have share time just to learn a little bit about each other's programs and how to make better referrals. These meetings, the first one took place in April. And then because of the feedback that we received with a survey, we ended up doing a second cross-team meeting with the same team and did that one in June. The process was well received. In the second meeting, staff took a deeper dive, again, getting into the program and the meat of eligibility, how to make better referrals. And we also created a cheat sheet for staff to be able to use. Again, this is a lot of information and multiple programs, so we felt like a cheat sheet would be a handy tool. We also took a look at the prevention referral form and took staff's feedback there to be able to improve the actual form itself to be able to better make those referrals. We had a really good participation with both. We unfortunately had to do them on Microsoft Teams due to COVID, but we are planning another meeting in January. We're hoping to do this one in person and to do a little bit more team building since we will be in the same room hopefully this time around. Staff will have a chance to again be able to meet and not just across the screen. And we hope to have that one in January. Staff felt these meetings were meaningful. It gave them a better understanding of each other's roles and unit processes, as well as learning a little bit more about the requirements for eligibility. Some of the outcomes, we mentioned trust. That is really big in the work that we do. So we felt like with staff knowing one another, it would develop trust amongst our staff. But also when we are working on common cases. A lot of the work that we do cross one another's programs, and so it did help staff to be able to feel more comfortable in doing that and making those referrals when they know the person that they're making that referral to. Again, the cheat sheet was a handy tool that was developed. We feel like gaining knowledge about each unit was a way to help improve the way we serve our clients, but also it ensures that we're meeting their needs more effectively. It served the purpose of getting us out of our silos and not being afraid to cross lines of communication when you're stepping outside of a unit that you've been typically working in. So we have learned that it has gotten workers out of the silos and opened up the lines of communication, which again goes back to serving that client better. And when referrals are routed, we do try to route them to the greatest need. When a client is presenting with those barriers, we try to work through and make sure that referral gets to the right person the first time. It has also continued for us to share information across programs. So again, communication as things change with our programs, it's always helpful for staff to know what those changes are. So when we are making referrals, we're making them appropriately and not based on old information. The goal is to ensure that families are linked to services without having to see multiple workers within the agency. Again, going back to focusing on customer service.
The short-term goals were for staff to gain a new understanding and appreciation of what their other teammates do. For staff to build more of a partnership with one another, staff have a clearer idea of how teammates and their responsibilities work together to help clients, and most importantly, to build good relationships with one another and feel comfortable when asking one another questions. Some of the long-term goals were staff are knowledgeable about how different teammates and their responsibilities work together to help customers and can share the larger picture knowledge with new hires. Customers get a well-rounded service from all staff and feel like they know exactly who to be sent to and receive fully wrapped services. Greater collaboration and partnership among teams in the department. And how well are we executing these ideas? The cross-team division meeting has encouraged collaboration that has resulted in breaking the silos that we were once in. What's still working well is the ongoing positive interactions among leadership that continues to break those silos. The continuous updates between divisions specific to program areas that better facilitate customer service. And how can we improve what we're presently doing? Leadership to have quarterly meetings where they share with one another and continue to foster collaboration with one another. This thought really embraces how leadership working well with one another has a trickle-down effect to the staff. So the last question, and I'm having trouble reading that, is to what extent are evaluation strategies were working? Staff that were polled unanimously enjoyed the cross-team meetings and wanted it to continue. They felt like they got to know one another better, and I can personally speak from how prevention and crisis were working together before and after. There's been a tremendous difference.
So just bringing this back around, so how does this help our customers? And I really like the illustration there that shows that the Department of Human Services cares about people in our community. And we have put quality customer experiences at the forefront of this project and what we do on a daily basis. We have competent staff and teams working together efficiently to solve problems, working together, working more efficiently, working smarter, not necessarily harder sometimes. And we've streamlined our referrals to improve our overall customer system of care, designed to wrap people in care and to reduce their level of crisis on the front end, which is part of the Hub Initiative, part of the vision of the Hub Initiative to do just that. We believe in the community, if we model that as a department, we're going to be able to get others to stand arm in arm with us in partnership and filling gaps and barriers to services. Oftentimes, if we can't meet the need, then some of our community partners will stand with us to do that. And so this is the work that this team has done, and what they've done with the cross-sector teams and with even the role swaps has strengthened our practice overall. And so how does this help the county? The process has empowered staff to identify problems and talk about them, and a more open dialogue, more transparency, and not afraid to speak up. The process has encouraged staff not to be afraid to fail forward and to not be risk averse to coming up with ideas. The process is going to help reduce turnover and build future leaders as well as, and I think that's huge for what we're dealing with the Great Resignation and seeing the turnover that we've had over the last 2 years, almost 30 months now. And so at the bottom there are several statistics of the feedback that we receive from the participation of the staff that did a survey at the end of the process, and you can see the numbers are quite high, 96%, 85%, 92%, and 94%. My vision is not good enough to see the writing at the bottom, but I can tell you that feedback is very positive in the experience of participating in this project. We are thankful as a department for the commissioners and the county leadership's support in allowing us to participate. And as you can see from what they have shared with you, we have grown through this process. Any questions?
No questions, but just compliment. I mean, it sounds like the program worked beautifully, and I know I've learned, I'm sitting here thinking myself, there are so many things that I do that I know how to do this. I want to keep it safe, and if I ever do step outside the bounds and get it right, I'm saying, oh gosh, I wish I'd have done this years ago. So, I mean, compliments to you guys for taking that step and creating that environment. It sounds like it's paying off.
I'm going to basically say the same thing, but I'm fortunate enough to serve as the liaison to this group over the last 7 years. And I can tell you, it doesn't surprise me at all that it was as successful as it was because of the attitude in which you guys go at things. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, we move now to item 3.2 from the library, reuse of bricks, plaques, and bench from the existing Mount Pleasant Library. And I think Kelly Sifford is going to talk about that item.
I am, and I have Melanie joining me. Lauren, if you could pull up, because we got some pictures in there that we would like to show. So in the process of designing the new library, the Friends of the Mount Pleasant Library brought up a few items that are in the library, the current library in Mount Pleasant, that were put in recognition of donors for the original library. There's plaques, there's bricks, and then there is also this bench, which was done in memory of a child that died tragically. So we have these items that they have requested that somehow we include them in our new facility. So we're bringing to you kind of for guidance. We have some ideas about incorporating some of these things, but maybe not in the current state that they're in. Obviously, the bricks are very hard to remove. And how many did you say were out there?
158.
158 bricks that would have to be cut out individually, cleaned, and all that to be reused. There are also plaques on that's a picture of the plaques that are on the wall that are recognizing various donors. Large area there. So those are the items that we're talking about, and how you want to handle that, because they were funding the original library. The funding for this library is different, so looking for direction.
Well, as for myself, I think if we could figure out a way to utilize those items, we should. And, even if it's just a memory room or something like that as part of the facility to, I feel like that we ought to use it if we can. And if you don't, then you're taking away something that was freely given for a worthwhile cause. And so to continue that cause, we need to try to make use of it.
Just to give you some ideas, we've been sent a couple of different things, so using potentially that information in a different way. An example that we were sent was like somebody had engraved the names in metal window sills. Don't have any idea how much that cost or anything. We haven't explored anything like that yet, but there might be some opportunities to incorporate all the names and all in a different way. If you would find that acceptable, kind of just giving you some ideas to work on there.
I think my thought on it was that's a lot of plaques and a lot of space, and they're expensive plaques as
They are.
well. And I remember very, very clearly the effort that was mounted to raise the money to build that library. It was in a large degree, the community, led by some great folks down there that caused that to happen. So I mean, I think that recognition should not be lost. As far as, with the number of plaques that they've got, I'm reluctant to say that there should be one more plaque, but perhaps a plaque explaining a little about the history, that these are the people that raised the funds to build the original library, and so that people will understand how it happened. To move those bricks looks like that would be an expensive proposition.
It's expensive, and, it doesn't necessarily fit in with the designs that we have
Right.
chosen. We can obviously take every name off of those and make sure that we recognize them in some other fashion, if that would be suitable to you.
Yeah, I think if we could do that, that would be great, and maybe leave the bricks where they are. I get the sense that potentially that building may serve another purpose for the county after the library moves to a new location, so that would still would be those community members. And then if there were something, whatever you deem most appropriate at the new facility, recognizing those people's names, I think that would be great. The bench looks like it would not be a problem to relocate.
Other than it may or may not work with our new, but we could obviously get another bench and have the same engraving, and, if we needed
Right.
to do something to match what we were doing.
Right, and of course, that too, if it were left where it is with that, I mean, as I mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
there will be some other public function occurring there. So I think at the discretion of the group, and the Friends of the Library group there in Mount Pleasant has been very engaged over the years in encouraging these plans and so forth. So, I'd love to be able to hear that they were pleased with whatever decision comes out of it. Because they continue to be valuable supporters of the library.
Okay, we will work on some options that incorporate certainly the names of everybody on the bricks, the plaques in some way with an explanation plaque or format that does that, and we will either use that bench or have a bench constructed that would meet with our design standards and have the name put on it as well.
Any more thoughts or any differences of opinions on that?
Say, I agree in theory with trying to do what we're talking about, but not knowing all of the design aspects and all. So I think that's just something that we'll have to continue to chat with throughout, once we know more. But I do agree with trying to preserve that for sure, if it can be done.
And keep in mind, there are a lot of bricks at Harrisburg. So you may be setting a precedent, so you do need to be mindful of what you do and what the long-term ramification is.
That is an excellent point. You're right,
Yeah.
there are a lot of bricks in Harrisburg.
Great. Does that give you what you need?
I think so. I think we can work with that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to discussion items for action. First up is item 4.1 from the Sheriff's Office, acceptance of NC legislative outlay. We're happy to have Chief Deputy Bailey and Sheriff Shaw both with us today. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Chairman. Thank you for having us this afternoon. We are here asking for the adoption of a legislative allocation that came out of this past session, and of course the associated budget amendment as well. To give you some background, discussion happened during the legislative session earlier this year, and it was a discussion involving some citizens of Cabarrus County, myself, Senator Paul Newton, and some of his staff. And it was in regards to child exploitation, child sexual exploitation, and human trafficking. And we talked about the numbers, those types of things, and what could we do to address that. Currently, in our criminal investigative division, we have investigators that work various cases. So we don't have dedicated investigators related to these particular types of cases. They work them along with the armed robberies and all those other types of things that come up. And Senator Newton encouraged me to put together a proposal in order to try and address this. And so we went back with staff and started looking at numbers and, what type of impact we could have. We know we have a close association with the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, both at the state and national level, as well as the numbers themselves that we're impacted by. And so to give you some idea, this year, so far this year in 2022, we've worked 49 sexual exploitation of minor cases that were just referred to us by the Internet Crimes Against Children Network. Within the county itself, we've worked an additional 81 cases on top of that in the area of indecent liberties with a child, sex offense with a child, and then sexual exploitation of a minor. We've also worked multiple human trafficking investigations, one of which included the indictment of 2 suspects in that particular case. We work also in conjunction with the District Attorney's Office, Homeland Security Investigations, as well as the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. So we work these together jointly because they do not recognize jurisdictional boundaries. They move all across this area, this metro area, if you will. And so we talk with our partners in that realm as well. One of the other partners we reached out to was Present Age Ministries that runs a home or a temporary housing for victims of human trafficking. And I requested their numbers as far as referrals, because a lot of human trafficking victims do not necessarily report as victims. They're seeking to get away as opposed to interact with law enforcement, if you will. So the numbers just for Cabarrus County to Present Age Ministries was 30 referrals out of our county for human trafficking. So that's not necessarily law enforcement involved referrals, but people that identified themselves as being involved in some type of human trafficking or sex trade and wanting to get out of that lifestyle. And that's where Present Age Ministry steps in and gives them that opportunity to relocate and go somewhere else. So after that discussion, I put together the proposal that's part of the packet here, and that was to fund 2 detectives over a 5-year period. Senator Newton kind of gave me some parameters to work with. He said, roughly $1 million. I think I budgeted out to about $1,024,000. So he was able to acquire the earmark of $1 million. So that will fund 2 detectives, their salaries and benefits, their vehicles, their equipment, some training, software, computers, those types of things over the course of 5 years, which I think will make a significant impact, and we'll be able to come back and report to you how many more cases we've been able to work as opposed to the 130 we've already worked kind of on a part-time basis. I hate to even say it like that, but investigations are resource dependent, and personnel is one of those key resources. So that's what I bring to you today. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, first, I want to start by congratulating you to getting to the top of the agenda instead of the bottom of the agenda as you are often
It
are.
might have had something to do with $1 million.
Well, I
That
figured
might-
because you had it, well, I thought it was probably because you had a gun, but other than that, but the $1 million works too.
I think even a little
Yeah,
better.
yeah, there you go. So, but so congratulations. I think this sounds awesome, and it's something I think that's very well needed. The only question I have is you did reference that it's $1,024,000. Do you have plans for where the other $24,000 is coming from?
We have had some preliminary discussions about that. There may be some areas within that budget that
That
we could
works.
trim out, so we could do that. I think the important thing is the personnel. So if we needed to cut back on training, we
Well, it's
put-
such a small amount. So,
We
but,
put
yeah.
everything we could in
Right.
this request. So to trim a few things out to bring that
Can make that
24,000
happen.
off to match, it would not be a problem.
I think it's awesome, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to, and especially hats off to Senator Newton for helping to facilitate this. And of course, without your backup and following through with the plan and making the proposal, that couldn't have happened. So I think the people of Cabarrus County will be beneficiaries of both of your good works. And so, yeah, it's very, very, very exciting.
Well, and I'd also like to publicly thank a Cabarrus County citizen, Tim Seagraves. Tim was very instrumental in being passionate about this and working with Senator Newton's office as well. So when you have a constituent out there that's helping you push along too, it goes a long way. So he's to be commended, as well as getting involved from a community member standpoint to help us get funds to do something so worthwhile.
Yeah, I think the average person in Cabarrus County leading their normal everyday lives really do not have a serious awareness of some of these activities that are going on every day. And so for us to take a special effort and pay special attention to eliminating that is tremendous.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
Just one question, Sheriff, and that is, well, these obviously will be 2 new positions.
Yes, it would be 2 new positions, and this is what they would focus on: child sexual exploitation investigations, ICAC investigations solely. That would be their focus and their assignment to do that.
Okay, thank you.
And to that question, I was going to point out, we'll need to modify the motion for this one. So it'll be motion to accept the grant award, authorize 2 full-time detective grade positions, and adopt associated budget amendment. So we'll need the authorization for the positions.
Right. And so you'll get that on our consent agenda for the regular meeting, if everybody's agreeable with that. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you come each meeting bringing $1 million.
Kind of sets the bar a little high.
Yeah. And
we'll
you have
try.
the next item as well.
Yes, Chief Bailey is going to take this one.
So, we, at one point, we had a radio tower, basically a maintenance account that was in a capital outlay fund. Those monies were moved over to the general fund, and so what this is going to do is it's basically estimating the costs that are associated with those towers and the revenues, because we lease space on those towers. So it's just going to clean that up since it's already now in the general fund. So it's just going to show the estimated revenues and expenditures that are coming out of that account, and to authorize the removal of the monies out that were left in that capital outlay fund and move those over to the general fund as well. It's just to clean it up and give us a little bit more oversight as far as what's going in and out of that account.
Any questions on that item? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item 4.3 from Active Living and Parks, 2023 proposed fees and charges and policies. And we welcome Londa Strong and Megan Bumgarner for that item.
The chief was bragging about bumping us. So we'll have to work on that. As you all may recall, we do our fee and charge policy for January because we have calendar year versus fiscal year to help with programs and things. And so our Active Living and Park Commission at last month's meeting went through with some hopefully some proposals. Yeah, there's always debate about why we charge whatever we do. We try to be as realistic as possible and as cost-saving as possible. We check with surrounding counties and cities to see what they charge for similar facilities. We're more on a few things than some and less on a few things from some of them around. So Megan is the chair of our ALP commission, and she is going to present what we have to this point.
Yes, and I believe all of you have received copies of our proposed changes, so I'm not going to go through them ad nauseum. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. I want to start by saying that most of the changes that we made were for clarification only, so it was either to update fees that we thought were a little outdated or to make sure that the policies and then the fees and charges matched each other, were consistent. And we added some things from the policy directly to the charges or the fees and charges, just to make sure that there's easier access for people who are trying to access that information. What I'm really going to hit, most of the changes came to Frank Lisk Park. As you all know, that's where most of the changes are occurring right now, is Frank Lisk Park. So we did, on page 3, limit the reservation time periods to Frank Lisk Barn from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. So we used to try to fit two reservation times in there, and then there was some conflict and some overlap with people trying to clean up versus people trying to set up. And so talking to staff, it was easier just to make one reservation time that lasted the bulk of the day. So we made sure to change that in the policy. Also on page 3, we changed the after or before hours rentals, a charge of $100 flat fee and $30 per hour per staff needed. It used to be 25, we've changed that to 30. All of that's to be determined by management, is for outdoor facilities only. That was in the policy manual previously. We just wanted to make sure it was reflected accurately in this document as well. Most of the changes that we're going to talk about in terms of fees are occurring at Frank Lisk Park. So the barn, of course, we are increasing those fees to $300 for the lower level and $400 for the upper level. That's on page 7 of the fees and charges policy. That is increased based on the size and the amenities in the renovated barn. We actually got to see the progress being made on the barn at our meeting, and that those fees are absolutely justified. So the commission was all in favor. It is an extremely nice facility. It will be by the time it gets done. We also increased road race and walk events. That increase is based on actual work that has to be done by the staff to get ready for a road race or a walk event. We also made sure to add the after or before normal park hours for indoor facilities. We made sure that those items matched the policy manual as well. And then the mini golf, we increased to be consistent with the paddle boats. And then we increased team and group early registration for road races. And we also increased setup and for the senior centers. And again, all of those were to reflect either actual work being done by staff or a comparison of what other people are charging in the area right now to make sure that we are consistent with other people. So other changes were made. A lot of them were just clerical in nature, but we'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have based on changes that you see.
And we are open to discussion on any of these or proposals or whatever, because we're just trying to be as fair as possible for the citizens that utilize our facilities. Those road race fees, what Megan was talking about, we have a lot of road races that people come in to do. They're not our road races, and our staff are the ones that lay out the course for them, help them with. A lot of them have no idea what event day happens, and they help with those things, and the numbers have just grown tremendously. Some days there's 4 or 5 races in a weekend, not some days, some weekends there's 4 or 5 races, morning and afternoon races. So it's become a little overwhelming.
Wanda, how's the booking coming for the barn? Are we
We-
getting?
We have not opened it up yet because we know we have our schedule, but we don't know for sure that that's when it will open, so we're holding out a little bit longer.
Well, they'll just all come at one time.
Yes.
So
And just-
on the
yes.
park hours, I'm trying to figure out just exactly what you changed. You marked out March 1st through March 31st, and
It just worded it differently.
the hours didn't change. it's
Correct,
mainly
just worded it so it made
gotcha.
more sense reading. And actually, I have one of the admin working on the policy itself, trying to make it a little more legible so that it's been added to and changed and added to and changed over the years, and we're trying to make
Right.
it clearer and easier to read for everyone. And when Megan noted policy and fees document, just for point of clarification, we have a fee and charge document and we have a policy document. They are two separate ones. One as to why and one as to what it is.
And so I know I've gotten calls about opening hours a number of times in the past, and that's mostly in the summer months. They want to open earlier.
Yes.
Because it's cooler and you
We do
have
that,
that
yes.
incorporated in, beginning July 1st, right?
We do, Vietnam veterans, Frank Lisk, Spencer is not part of, and Rob Wallace. Spencer remains at 8. There's just no demand there for people to come in at 7 o'clock.
Right,
But the others definitely, yes.
yeah.
And there's normally people waiting at the gate when they show up 15 or 20 minutes early. They're sitting there waiting.
Right. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. And I think you have the next item as well.
Yes, I'm going to ask Byron to come up with me on that one, please. Thank you, ma'am. There we go. Find the right one. My printer wanted me to have large pages this time, so when I print it out, I have lots of these. Instead of trying again, I got one of these and one of these out of the same document, so. It's time for the tennis courts at Frank Lisk Park to be resurfaced. We've talked with Mr. Harris, with IAM over what to do. We've had lots of requests for pickleball. We've got lines on 4.
All 6.
Oh, it's all 6
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
okay. Just lines on the existing court. Nets are close to the same size, but we have the kits where you can lower the net so it meets pickleball, and then the pickleball lines inside of the tennis court. We have, in my time here, since tennis courts have been at Frank Lisk Park, it's up and down and up and down and up and down with use. We've been in a downward turn for, I would say, 4 or 5 years, 3 or 4 before COVID. I still think COVID was 12 years long. It has to be the way that everything has been going lately. We have lots of requests for pickleball. We've been offering pickleball classes. I put some of the numbers in there. And the classes are making for pickleball. Tennis does not. So we were wanting to convert one bay, possibly 2 bays, where there's 3 sets of 2 for 6 total courts at Frank Lisk. Convert those to pickleball only and then leave the last bay for tennis, or the last 2 bays, whichever. That we want to discuss it and see if there's need, demand. We've had articles written about these specific courts. There's a video, I believe, that John Poole shared with me. Came from CNC, I think it was. This fellow who teaches at Frank Lisk, who lives in Charlotte, and he comes over because he says those are the best pickleball courts around. The pickleball is growing like crazy. As you all remember, when we used to host the North Carolina Senior Game State Finals, we were having 600 and 800 just seniors, over 50, coming to Cabarrus County and playing at Carolina courts, and it's continued to grow. Hartselle has 2 outdoor courts. Academy doesn't have any. Logan plays indoors on 2 courts. They have put lines on their outdoor courts, as long as Caldwell Park and Myers Park, but nobody has any specifically dedicated pickleball courts at this time. Now, City of Concord does have pickleball listed in their bond package, so if that passes, there's potential for, I believe it's 8 total across the county at their parks and within the city limits. So that's another thing to consider. That's why we threw around the 1 bay or 2 bays of switching over. I don't know if that'll pass, or and if it does, when they'll be built, because I think it's based out over about 8 years. So that's where we are. We just wanted to discuss it and see what your thoughts are. All of this stuff I have here is documentation on pickleball and how it's the fastest growing sport in the United States for seniors as well as kids.
And so 1 bay equals 2 tennis courts.
Correct.
And 2 pickleball courts.
It would be,
You can convert 1 bay into comfortably, very comfortably, an attractive 6 courts. So one single bay, 2 tennis courts could be converted to 6
You get it.
Pickleball
4,
courts.
yeah, right
okay.
there is,
4 there, but we've looked at multiple layouts.
well, that's just
that-
1 court.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. But we were, at least consensus from staff was looking at 6 bays, 6 courts into 2 tennis courts. The spacing that you can provide, the availability of the spacing in between, the interference of the ball play, anything like that, to have that little bit of additional space versus an additional court made more sense when we were looking at the numbers. But nationwide, the trend is for dedicated courts and not hybrid, or what we are looking at is hybrid of putting down lines on top of tennis courts. There are some league and tournament play that don't allow for it because of lines down or multiple lines down, and the demand is pickleball.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me. The motion that we've got just calls for 1 bay,
Right.
6 pickleball courts.
And the reason I asked for suspension of the rules is because IAM had said that if we waited till the end of November, it might not be completed because of the work that has to be done in the wintertime.
Right.
So that's, a couple extra weeks. May help, may not.
So why'd you choose 1 bay instead of 2 bays?
Just being conservative.
Conservative.
I didn't know what you all were going to think. I know Mr. Harris, when we,
Need to be conservative. Doesn't sound like you need to be conservative to me if you follow the marketplace and you look at what your demand is.
one of our discussions, we talked about the possibility of the additional courts coming in with the City of Concord, and so that's why I just said, but I am not opposed to doing 2 bays.
Well, I have a quick question. So what would you, where the line, the dashed line where the old tennis court net would go, would have to be a fence, right? You're,
Ideally.
yes.
Yes.
I mean, you can't play if that's not a fence. The side-to-side's not an issue, but that would be.
You're looking at a half-court fence or a
Yeah.
hip
Yes.
height fence.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, not to beat a dead horse, but if the demand of what you're seeing is that strong, and no knock on tennis, but if the demand is just not there, I think it's reasonable to assume that you as a department and this board would react to what is taking place in the marketplace.
Well, as far as money, Michael may have something to say about that, but I don't know how much is budgeted for that resurfacing, and by converting, it's going to cost more. So I don't know if you could get 2 bays done out of it. You may be able to. I have no idea. Mr. Miller, do you have any?
I'm guessing by the time these other pickleball courts get built around the county, it'll probably be time to resurface them again.
Probably so.
Just based on all of our construction projects.
We have $280,000 in that CIP, and what ALPS would like to do
we'll probably actually do some redesign. We won't just have a contractor look at it. It's kind of funny, yesterday on the listserv for procurement, there was another community looking for somebody to do tennis courts. They didn't say pickleball, but it might have been. And there's only 2 vendors that anybody could find in the state that's even willing to do those. So we've reached out to both, but I think we'll have to involve some sort of design on that in terms of the conversion. So we'll get started on that right away. That's why Londa was looking for direction, was to set us off. But I can't tell you, yes, it will cost more because there's just more work being done, but I can't tell you that it'll push us over the budget of the CIP.
Questions, commissioners? So we do have a request to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight, and I wonder if we can reword that motion just a little bit to give you some flexibility based on budget and how the research turns out as far as getting somebody to do the work. Does that make sense?
Fine, yes, be glad to hear that.
Okay, commissioners, do I hear a motion to suspend the rules of procedure? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And, let's see, I would entertain a motion to approve infrastructure and asset management and the active living parks and Parks Department to convert the appropriate number of tennis courts to pickleball courts at the Frank Lisk Park Tennis Complex based on the availability of resources.
So moved. Before somebody forgets.
Does that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That is unanimous.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Okay, we move now to item 4.5, which is appointments to boards and committees. You all have received, have that in your agenda. You also received an email earlier. I think we only have one this time. Yeah, so any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, then we will move to item 4.6 from Cabarrus County Schools, funding for traffic improvements.
I can take it. And Dr. Kopicki's not able to make it, so that's why I was sitting there talking to him.
So you have their request in your packet, and this is for Cox Mill High School. Since the beginning of the school year, they have been having some challenges with queuing of cars coming in the morning and then in the afternoons. So this request is for $75,000 to make some road improvements internally that will allow them to better stack cars in the AM and PM. They did in their memo reference a couple of different funding options. Because one of those funding options is to use Roberta Road Middle School excess funds, and that is debt. We don't think that's the most appropriate use. And then the other is NCDOT reimbursement money, but that has already been allocated. And so we're recommending you use board contingency if you choose to fund this.
Questions, commissioners?
I just have a question. As far as road improvements, are they adding onto the street or internally in the school complex?
Internal to the school complex, they're extending a road connection.
Okay, that's why I just wanted to understand where it was going to be.
Yeah, they're trying to get it off the street. And just as a reference, you remember Cox Mill High School and Cox Mill Elementary are directly across the street from each other, and it's when it was one school, it was fine. Now that it's two schools, it's been getting worse and worse.
So it's basically just increasing the stacking on site, so more cars can sit and wait for people to be picked up. And so you are recommending that those funds come from our board contingency. Anybody have concerns about that? Okay, hearing none, we will move to the next item. Item 4.7 from the Cabarrus Health Alliance, Vital Strategies Leveraging Opioid Settlement Funds. And we have Sonia Bohannon-Thacker and Kristen Klingelsmith with us from the Health Alliance. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you want me to start, or would you prefer to go ahead
It's
and do the?
completely up to you.
Okay, well, I've had several conversations over the last few weeks with Dr. Coyle, and she's asked us to consider working with Vital Strategies, and I'll let you ladies explain who Vital Strategies is. But they are willing to, their organization is willing to provide a match to county funds to enhance or to support harm reduction programs throughout North Carolina. And so Dr. Coyle and Kristen and Sonia are in support of that, doing it here locally. So we're recommending, or they're asking for a 3-year period of $70,000 a year. And that they will be matched by the Vital Strategies. And I'll pass it on to you if you have anything other that you want to add to that, or is that pretty much the basic part of it? So.
I'll add a little bit to it. So, over the past 7 to 10 years in Cabarrus County, we've really had to mobilize to figure out how we're going to engage community partners and to really figure out how we're going to make an impact with addiction and substance use disorders that we see in Cabarrus County. So I've had the opportunity to work with a variety of you in many different capacities over the past several years. And I think we're at a part where we have a stepping stone. We have the opportunity for opioid settlement funding where we've never had longevity funding like that over the course of 18 years. And so Vital Strategies, they're the entity that provides the implementation and technical oversight for the Bloomberg Philanthropy Overdose Prevention Initiative. And they are willing to donate, well, not donate, they're willing to match up to $70,000 for 3 years if counties decide that they will support for 3 years a match for harm reduction programming. And so this match would be, again, for $300,000, it would be for 3 years, up to $70,000. And you all would be able to decide what you would want that to be. Our request is that it helps us with staffing support for our harm reduction services. One of the biggest things with our harm reduction services is we want to get as many people into recovery as we can, and we need to have those catch points, and we do have that. And one of the biggest pieces that we have are our peer support specialists, and those are individuals with lived experience who are able to connect with individuals who are in active addiction with a substance use disorder and get them connected with interventions around the county. So the funding that we would want to use for, if you all agreed to match the $70,000, would be for staffing support, so we can continue to sustainably and for a longer term be able to connect people to whatever form of recovery works for them so they can be happy, healthy, and contribute to our community.
You guys may be familiar with the Sun Clinic project. We also have a RISE project that serves individuals that are not pregnant in the same capacity. And we see peer support as a really important part of those programs as well. That's just one wonderful place where peer supports interface.
So we have an opportunity to take $210,000 that we are receiving in the opioid settlement and make it become $420,000, which, I'm sitting here thinking about 4 or 5 years ago when we were sitting here having discussions about Cabarrus County leading the state in the number of overdoses. And of course, fortunately, we are not in that position now, but to have the funds available to address some of those issues and then to be able to double it with this, I think is a great opportunity. Certainly, anybody has questions or comments, I think it's a great opportunity for us. And
now on page 70 in your slides there, you can see the financial chart there based on what we are planning to receive over the next few years, but also showing those 70,000 payments there. So there's still plenty of funds left at your disposal. So we will continue to be working with these ladies here, along with our EMS and our sheriff on programs that they have in mind as well. So we will be planning those additional funds very soon. So.
Yes, and so we do, I think the deadline for an answer back to these folks is this week.
The grant is due on November 15th, so it is a very, very.
Oh, next week.
Next week.
Yeah, so we do have a need to act on this tonight, so I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And if it be pleasure of the board, I would entertain a motion to approve the match funding to Vital Strategies in the amount of $70,000 for 3 years, totaling $210,000 from our opioid settlement funds. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
That's going to go a long way to making some people's lives better in Cabarrus County.
That's our goal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we move to item 4.8 from the Department of Human Services, SHIP funding increase. We're happy to have Anthony Hodges with us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to come speak with you. And this is regarding our SHIP program, which is the Senior Health Insurance Information Program. It's a program that helps individuals that are on Medicare either sign up for Medicare or get assistance with different aspects of Medicare. The biggest thing that we do right now is we're in Medicare Part D open enrollment. That's probably takes a big chunk of time. It's right now going on. We're seeing people at the senior center and in our offices and helping them pick a drug plan that best suits their what their finances are, what their medications are, those kind of things. And we offer an unbiased information to them. A lot of places you'll go, you'll see people set up in stores and things doing this, but they usually work for a certain insurance company. So we do that, but then throughout the year, we're doing, helping individuals sign up that are new to Medicare, providing seminars and information to that, and then helping people throughout the year. This program is funded through a couple different grants, and this one I'm talking to you today is the state grant. And when we did the budget earlier for FY23, we used the amount, because we didn't have the state funding yet. They had given us the exact amount, so we used last year's numbers. And we got the state amount last month, and actually it's an increase of $1,399. So we budgeted $83.57, and we're actually receiving $9,756. And there's no county match for these funds. So I'm just asking that you approve the budget amendment and the grant.
That sounds like very good news. Asking us to approve an increase in monies coming in, for sure.
Yeah.
Any questions? I think this is a great program.
Yes, sir.
That is very confusing to me, the volume of mail that comes soliciting one program over another. It's very, very hard for anybody. So I'm sure that assistance is very appreciated.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We move to item 4.9 from Emergency Management, Homeland Security Grant Program Award and Budget Amendment. Happy to have Jason Burnett with us.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Emergency Management has been awarded a Homeland Security grant requiring a budget amendment for grant acceptance. The Homeland Security Grant Program is a federal grant program that provides funding to local jurisdictions through the North Carolina Emergency Management. These grants are distributed on a regional basis through a Domestic Preparedness Region, or better known as DIPR, established by the North Carolina State Emergency Response Commission. The DIPR assists counties with planning, training, exercising, and mitigation, as well as management of various grant and funding opportunities. Cabarrus County is located within DIPR number 7. Local jurisdictions receive equipment and resources purchased through this grant program on a rotational basis. Cabarrus County has been awarded a grant in the amount of $65,000 to purchase one prime mover and will serve as a sponsor or host for this grant and retain the equipment purchased. A prime mover is defined as a heavy-duty vehicle that will allow the county to tow and haul substantial loads such as trailers and other equipment for the purpose of moving equipment and resources safely throughout the county and the region. The prime mover will also provide the movement of non-trailer-based resources and assist with the distribution of commodities and other types of supplies during emergency or non-emergency related incidents. The grant is fully funded and will not require a match by Cabarrus County, and this item does require a motion to accept the grant award and adopt the associated budget amendment.
Another, I should have been keeping a tally. $1 million grant, 210,000, 8,000, 65,000. Yeah, I wish if we would get as much attention for money coming in as we do money we spend, that would be a good thing. Any questions on this item for Jason? Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I guess the only question I would have, will it fit in our new warehouse?
It will fit in the new warehouse, so.
Good.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, we move to item 4.10 from Infrastructure and Asset Management, City of Concord Public Utility Easement, and I think Kyle's going to talk to us about that one.
So presenting a public utility easement that is related to the electric utilities only for the Emergency Equipment Warehouse and ITS building located on Ramden Court, across from the Infrastructure and Asset Management Operations Center. Its address is 485 Cabarrus Avenue, but that's not, it's the address for the Emergency Equipment Warehouse doesn't have a Cabarrus Avenue address. It has a Ramden Court address. This is coming up from the Martin Luther King easement. That's how it works its way up. This is our second try at this easement. We had to change some of the ways that our underground utilities were coming in. So this is very straightforward. The verbiage from the city is a standard to all of the easements that we use for them, and we'll be turning back around and doing 3 more of these before the project is done. This just happens to be the electric.
Any questions for Kyle? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes our discussion items, and we move now to the approval of the regular meeting agenda. I don't think we have taken any action tonight that would change anything there. So if so, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda and schedule the public hearings. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We do have need of a closed session tonight, so I would entertain a motion to go into closed session for pending litigation and acquisition of real property as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 A3 and 5. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. We now are in closed session. Would like to remind everybody tomorrow is Election Day and would encourage everybody to go out and vote. And we will see you again at our regular meeting in 2 weeks on November 21st. Thank you.